Oh, one person joining in. Hopefully they get in this time. We're having some difficulty earlier. There we go. Okay, well, we were just getting started. Go ahead and keep your intros coming in the chat. But welcome everyone to the second all hands meeting of March. We'll discuss a little bit more why two, but I appreciate you all for being here. This is a more casual um, and informal one, but we are recording this meeting, and like usual, it will be posted to YouTube. So if you miss this meeting, you can't stay for the whole thing, or you missed a previous meeting, um, you can always get caught up on YouTube, or if you just prefer that, you don't even need to come to these meetings. And There's lots of other useful information on there as well in our social media channels in general. So please stay in touch in whatever your preferred way to stay in touch is. Um, as usual, I'm going to go through this a little more quickly, but Whole Washington is the state's largest universal healthcare nonprofit. We're the authors of a proposal called the Washington Health Trust, which is the only universal healthcare bill in the legislature. But we're going to talk a bit today about how we're also building towards a ballot initiative campaign and our work through the Healthcare is a Human Right Coalition. Um, I'm Andre. I'm the executive director of Whole Washington. I live in Seattle near Green Lake. You can email me or set up a one-on-one anytime. I'm getting caught up on my one-on-ones. I was unable to book people for a while, but I've had some great meetings just today. So looking forward to meeting more people. But book one anytime with me. Always love to support. Um, so a bit about the all hands meeting. For a very long time, actually, probably about as long as I've been with Whole Washington, even longer. Our all hands meetings have been held monthly on the first Monday of each month. It has served us well, but it has also come with some challenges. And as we grow, we're looking to make more efficient use of our calendar time, more efficient use of people's time in general. And so, for a number of reasons that'll make it easier for us to not duplicate our work and to have a little bit more run up to each meeting for planning and making these all hands meetings just go a bit more smoothly. We are moving them to the fourth Monday of each month, which means that the next one will be on April 27th at 7 p.m. We use this month as a transition month, so we met on the first Monday of March. We're meeting on the fourth Monday of March, and then that will be our schedule from here forward. Some folks may have been caught a little bit by surprise. It could have been on the 30th. We had sort of said last Monday of the month, and this month actually proved to be a good um, sort of edge case to catch us because a lot of months don't have 5 Mondays, but every month has 4 Mondays, and the fourth Monday will always come after the board meeting, which is held on the third Thursday. So this is a way to just sort of align the work that the board does with the work that we do in the all hands meeting. Um, so keep it in mind that the all hands meeting comes after the board meeting, and that will help us just plan ahead a bit better. Um, I went ahead and compiled some stuff going on. Usually we look ahead to the next month, and in this case, we have a week of March left, and I was quite surprised at how much we had on the calendar just for the last week. So um, on the 24th, we have what's called a labor table with our Healthcare as a Human Right Coalition. So especially if you are a labor member, please join those labor tables. Um, they are explicitly for people who are labor members, active within their union, and it's a very labor-centric, labor-led conversation. So this is the best way to begin plugging in your labor union to the work Whole Washington does. This is on our calendar. On the 25th, which is this Wednesday, we will be doing an online training for No Kings. We're going to be attending as many No Kings events across the state as possible. So we're talking about No Kings today, but also again on Wednesday, and then it's going to be on Saturday, statewide. And so this is our last week to really get ourselves organized, get turnout up, and make the most of this opportunity. Um, on the 26th, we'll be having a student organizing meeting. We're really just trying to kind of get this off the ground. We've laid some foundation for student organizing, but we haven't had a proper student organizing meeting. So this will be on Zoom. Um, we're trying to catch students before they go back for spring quarter. So spring quarter should start about a week after this. It's kind of our last chance to catch them before back to school season. So we're going to hold this meeting, see where that leaves us for doing more student stuff across spring and summer quarters. But certainly, if you are a student or somebody in your family is a student, feel free to direct them to this meeting, and it's a great place to get started with that. As I mentioned, on the 28th, we have the No Kings events. So a lot of our attention and resources are devoted to that right now. You might have seen it on our homepage. So check it out. Now's the time to figure out what you are able to make it to, what you might be able to contribute, and we'll go over that a bit more. And then on the 29th, one of our county teams, Omak County, will be holding their a regular meeting, but combining it with a screening of Healing Us, which is a documentary that talks about the universal healthcare movement and features a fair number of whole Washington people who were interviewed in this documentary. So that's just finishing out March. Coming up on April, I did want to look ahead. So I looked at the event calendar for April, and my first impression was that other than our sort of regularly scheduled stuff, there wasn't a whole lot on it yet, which is fine. It's just a little opportunity for us to really plan ahead a little bit, think through what we might get on there for April. But just going by what we have right now, um, we have the town hall. We have an in-person town hall in Olympia. So if you haven't made it to one of those yet, they're a really great opportunity to meet with a lot of members of the community, ask questions. You'll learn a ton. And the in-person component is really great. We do online town halls, but I think it's always ideal if you can make it to one in person when you get the chance. Um, there's also a tabling event in Vancouver, Esther Short Park. So if you happen to be in Southwest Washington, interested in getting out for some tabling, maybe check that one out. I put Earth Day on here. It's kind of nice to have an event each month that will be happening across the state. It gives us opportunities to go out and to join in on other events, get our literature out there, get a table there. So while we don't have anything explicitly planned yet, I just put this on here. If folks are hoping to do something in their county, hoping to do something in April, maybe see if Earth Day presents opportunities. We may be able to organize more for that, especially after No Kings. It is in late April, so we've got a few weeks of run up here, but feel free to look into it and to get opportunities on our radar for ways that we might tie in our work to stuff people are doing on Earth Day or around Earth Day. And then on the 22nd, I just had confirmation today, but Senator Hasagawa will be able to do the next Universal Healthcare Stakeholder meeting on the 22nd as well. So that'll be held during the day. It's a reschedule. We were hoping to hold this in March, but we've pushed it out. But I can say with quite a bit more confidence that this will be the date. We will have materials prepared in time, and the invite should go out very soon. So we'll talk more about the stakeholder meetings as well, but those are some things coming up in April. We should try to get this month filled out a bit more, but check the calendar. There's lots of stuff up there, including virtual events and regularly scheduled work meetings and that kind of thing. Okay, so we've been giving updates on the 501c3, and I did want to let folks know of one little bit of progress that we've had here. So last meeting, we went over making tax-deductible donations through GiveButter. And so if you go to wholewashington.org/donate, you may notice a new tab on there. The tab says Employer Matching. And that's because we should be able to receive matching donations from employers who do have giving programs that feature an employer match. And those are going to be tax-deductible donations through the 501c3, which for folks who don't know, we are fiscally sponsored by Sustainable Seattle. And that's going to explain the rest of this and make that a little bit easier to understand. So we've gone ahead and kind of tested this with Microsoft, which is one employer who does these employer match programs. Um, and so we were trying to add Whole Washington to the list of organizations that could receive those funds. And they asked us for the EIN of the organization that'd be receiving it, which was technically Sustainable Seattle. And what we found was that Sustainable Seattle was already in their database for participating employers. And so where that really led us is you technically have to make the donation to Sustainable Seattle, and then you specify in the description or the memo, and these instructions are on the web page that you see here, but you specify it in the memo that Whole Washington is the recipient. And then Sustainable Seattle will receive that donation and allocate it to us. Um, that's the way that it works at Microsoft because Sustainable Seattle is already set up with them. Your employer may or may not already be set up with Sustainable Seattle. So if they're not, you can try to see if there's a way to have them added. They may have an application, they may have a process for nominating an organization to receive matching funds. So it's really going to be case by case for each employer, but we expect that this is kind of where it's going to um, how it's going to work for most employers. Now, you may be wondering if your employer has an employer matching program, and that's another thing that you'll have to verify with your employer on your own. But one resource that you can check, and this is also linked on that same set of instructions on the donate page, you can check to see if your employer is on the list maintained by the League of Women Voters of Seattle and King County. So this is oriented towards employers who employ people in Washington, which is great. It would have taken us a really long time to do all this research and compile this list. And shout out to Thomas for finding this list. But as you can see, tons of employers are participating, including a lot of the really big ones, including ones that pay pretty well. So just at a quick glance, we can see that Boeing is on here. We can see Costco is on here. We can see Nordstrom is on here. We can see Starbucks is on here. Notably missing is Amazon, but BECU is on here, Expedia is on here. So there is a very good chance that you or somebody that you know is working for an employer who does have a giving program with an employer match and who can have that donation go to Whole Washington. So this is going to be really, really critical to strengthening our fundraising. We need to raise a lot of money to run a successful ballot initiative campaign, especially if we're trying to do that by 2027. So please look into your employer. Please see if this is a way that we can start getting Washington's business sector to actually contribute to this work, because it's great that we're funded by small dollar donors. It's great that people sign up for $27 a month donations. But if we can get a company like Microsoft to drop a couple $1,000s in matching funds per employee, then that's going to go a long way really fast. So we'll keep updating you on this. Hopefully you'll hear more and more about this, and we'll send some emails and stuff. But this is already set up for you to begin investigating. And if Sustainable Seattle can receive those donations, then we can receive them through Sustainable Seattle. And we mentioned this last month, but we're also pursuing grants, currently looking at grants through Ben & Jerry's, Inatai Foundation, and a couple others. So if you have experience with grants or you're aware of grants that we should be pursuing, this is another way that you can get involved. We are also looking into getting a Google Workspace set up, so we should be able to get access to a lot of free digital resources that we're currently paying for, including wholewashington.org email addresses. So you or your team, may be able to get an email address set up for that purpose, and there's a lot of advantages to that, including keeping all of your Whole Washington communication in one inbox, but also just representing the organization a bit more professionally. So more updates from the C3 will continue, but that's what we have for you this month. Also, just a reminder about the gala on May 16th in West Seattle, the Youngstown Cultural Arts Center. Amy Storm is the coordinator for this, currently soliciting auction items We'll need to build a team to work the night of. So a lot of this stuff is coming together. Where tickets are also on sale. So you can go to the events calendar, go to May 16th, and you can buy your ticket there. So that is now open. I believe there is also an early bird special going right now. And so um, go ahead and buy a ticket or sponsor a table. We're also looking for organizational sponsors and doing some of the outreach on that. So if you are involved with an organization that you think might be interested in sponsoring Whole Washington, they can set that up, and sponsorship will get them some tickets to the event, some recognition, and other little goodies. So please help us make this gala a success. It's again a huge part of the fundraising um, fundraising machine that we are building and that we need to build in order to run a successful initiative campaign. Um, so now jumping into some more specific updates and organizing updates. The biggest thing, like I said, is that this Saturday, March 28th, is No Kings. Whole Washington is planning to make the most of this. So Indivisible and other organizations have done a huge amount of legwork to get thousands and thousands of people out across the state, the sort of people who are aligned with our values, the sort of people who get out of their house to work on their political community, which means that they're the exact sort of people that we need to be connecting with. So, our goal is to be present and well organized at as many of these as we can. Hopefully, there'll be a place where you can meet up and find us. Hopefully, you'll see people in red shirts, and hopefully, there'll be things to do like passing out quarter sheets, like putting up posters, like sitting at a table and having conversations with people. And so these events are always a huge opportunity for us to get out into the community. Um, yes, these are all the things I just mentioned: tabling, lit distribution, postering, flyering, more things if you can think of them. But again, this Saturday, the 28th, currently, and if you go to the website, you can RSVP, and you'll see that we have events set up for these locations: Vancouver, Olympia, Seattle Center, Kirkland, Spokane, Tacoma, Yakima, and Edmonds. If you look at the No Kings map, though, you will see that there are quite a few more events across the state. And so if none of the events that you see currently up there right now look like ones you want to go to, if it's too far, if you're going to be at another one for another organization or something, for whatever reason, you're interested in another event, um, there's still time for us to get it on our calendar and to get some people out to it. So, like this slide says, there's still time. The request is please do RSVP. Please do invite friends and family. Please do sign up to help table or canvas. Um, and if there is not currently a Whole Washington event at the one that you're planning on attending, then please see about hosting a Whole Washington table at that event, and we can get a few more up there. I do want to pause at this time. A few people have joined. I know we're recording, so I'm going to pause the recording. But I want to ask if folks are planning on attending, which one they're planning on attending. So I'm going to pause the recording. There we go. Just wanted to give people the opportunity to stop, join us here, and not worry about being on the recording or not being on the recording. So I'll go back a couple slides to this list. And we only have 13 people here today, and some people I already know the answer, but who here, use the hand raise function, is planning on attending a No Kings event on Saturday? I see a hand from Trish. I see a hand from Catherine, Cara, Caleb, Matt, Patrick, Jane, Rhonda. Okay, great coverage, great coverage. Thomas, awesome. So most of us here today are planning on attending one, maybe not everyone. Nice. Daniel, hand up. Stephen would go, but has a broken wheelchair. Understandable. So my first question is, Is everyone here planning on attending one of the events that you see in this list, or is anyone planning on attending an event that is currently not listed on this list? I still see three hands up, but just go ahead and unmute yourself and let us know. Okay, Rhonda saying not listed.
I
Thomas
think
saying
it
mine
will
is
be a
not listed.
very small, but fierce gathering here in Redmond.
Redmond. Okay. Thomas, yours is not listed. Are you thinking of doing another Seattle one? Ah, away from home in Kennewick. But you are planning on attending in Kennewick? Is that what I'm hearing? Got it. Okay. And then Caleb saying Seattle, definitely listed. Catherine, I don't see Snohomish up here. Which one were you planning on attending?
Snohomish.
Snohomish.
It's not on the map? Wow.
Well,
That's
it's on the No Kings map, but it's not on whole Washington's because we haven't set up an RSVP for it and all of that stuff. So I think we usually try to only list the ones that we're sure that there will be a whole Washington person at.
yeah.
Um,
We've got people there and Edmonds and Everett. So
okay, and so checking in with it sounds like Catherine is comfortable having us add Snohomish. Rhonda and Thomas, uh, are either of you Uh, would either of you prefer that we don't list yours on the event if that means that you have to be sort of there to represent and we have to tell people to meet you? Um, would you rather kind of keep it off of the event page or do you want to do this as a whole Washington thing? Okay, Rhonda preferring not, off is good. Okay, so we will not add Redmond or Kennewick until we hear from somebody else to coordinate, but we will add Snohomish. That's great. Um, do we have any questions about No Kings, concerns, ideas, um, needs? I know every event will be organized differently. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll be in Tacoma, and I don't think we have a table. I've
Okay.
only talked to Pam, and we're volunteering in the first aid station, and we'll probably take turns going around with literature. But she said last time I talked to her, she said there wasn't going to be a table, which I thought was kind of a missed opportunity because that's how I met Pam and learned about you guys was at the last Snow Kings in Tacoma. So
Mhm.
anyway, and I don't know how many other people will be there. So that's all I know. And um I'm not sure how good I'll be at handing out leaflets to people. I know I'd be pretty good at a table though. So anyway,
Okay. Yeah, thank
but
you
I
so
will be there
much.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'll check in with Pam and Jen. Stick with Pam. Pam is super good at this stuff, so
She
uh,
knows everybody. We went to the legislative town hall together uh, here in Tacoma, and yeah, she knows everybody. It's great.
mhm.
So,
And I think, it is great when we can do a table. I think we consider sort of the minimum to be listed on the page and to make it official. The minimum is basically a place for people to meet, so at least if they show up,
right.
they're able to find us. Um, but a table, often is ideal.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we'll be meeting in the first aid station, which sounds like fun.
okay, great. Um, does anyone else have No Kings discussion, um, ideas? Seems like we're pretty good on this. I will just say Jen has been doing more of the organizing for this than me, and Jen cannot join us tonight. But if you have further questions or need further support, that Wednesday training is going to be a really good place to get that. So if you can attend that, that's what I'd recommend. And if you can't make it to that, then Jen Nye is the person to reach out to, and she will be really excited to support you. But I'm going to go ahead and move us on from this. We can always jump back to it if there's more time, but I'm going to jump and resume the recording. Okay. So, as I've been saying, we're planning ahead for a ballot initiative campaign. There's been a lot of people asking about how do I get involved with the ballot initiative campaign? When is it going to happen? And so, what we've always said with Whole Washington, and it can be a little bit abstract and sometimes a little bit difficult for people to understand, but all the work that we do at Whole Washington is always in service of the ballot initiative campaign. It is the most powerful tool that we have to force change in this state, and therefore it kind of comes at the end of a lot of other effort, a lot of other effort towards growth, a lot of other effort towards fundraising. So when we're out there doing legislative work, when we're out there doing town halls, when we're out there collecting pledge to sign, really what we're doing is we are growing Whole Washington, we are growing the word of mouth, and it is building us up towards an organization that has the reach and the power to succeed on a statewide signature gathering campaign and then a statewide get out the vote campaign. And it can be frustrating to wait for that, and it can be frustrating to feel like the thing I want to work on is out in the future, and so the thing that I have to work on now is not related to that, even if it is indirectly related to that. But the reality is that if we're going to make the 2028 ballot, we're either doing a 2027 initiative campaign, signature gathering campaign, or a 2028 signature gathering campaign, which is another way of saying this is coming up very soon. So it is time that we start to build this team that is really going to start working out the details, building the foundation. So first thing for folks who are interested in this and may not have been plugged in or aware of this, we do have a Slack channel. It's called Team Initiative. So if you're interested in building the initiative campaign, getting involved in this way, join the Team Initiative Slack channel, and we can coordinate a lot of our work there. Like with a lot of our teams, that's where we'll bookmark important documents. That's where we'll announce meetings. So please do join us in Team Initiative. I also have tentatively, and it's not on the calendar yet, I'm sorry for that, but tentatively am planning that our initiative team meeting that we've been trying to get scheduled for a while will be on the 8th, which means that we're taking a week off after No Kings, and then we're going to jump into an initiative team meeting. I'm scheduling it for 5:30. I think it's important that these initiative team meetings are in the evening because unlike a lot of our day-to-day work, which really is kind of run by a small core team that needs to make a lot of decisions and talk through a lot of things and prefers to do that during working hours, the initiative team is one that really is about scale and growth and broad participation, which means that we need to be accommodating to people who work day jobs and need the evenings and the weekends to be the time where we do this stuff. On the other hand, because right now I will need to be highly involved in this, I put it a little earlier in the evening, 5:30, so that I don't have super long days where I spend a whole day working and then on top of that have to meet into the wee hours of the evening. So 5:30, I'm hoping, is a good balance. This will just be the first meeting. We can discuss further scheduling after that. But the intention is that this team is going to meet pretty regularly. Don't know quite how often, maybe every 2 weeks. We might meet a little more frequently when we're getting it off the ground. But really, there's a lot of work that needs to happen through this team. And so we need to get it started, and we need to keep it meeting regularly. So expect that initiative team is going to have its first meeting on the 8th, and then we'll be meeting very regularly through the rest of the year. We'll be talking about planning, training, coordinating, fundraising, building infrastructure. Unlike a lot of our other stuff that happens online, it happens in Zoom meetings and Teams meeting. The initiative campaign is going to have a highly, highly in-person physical component, physical pieces of paper, face-to-face conversations with people, um, managing equipment up and down the state. So there's a lot of lift, and everything that has that component needs more planning and more lead time. So that's the gist of it. Now is the time to get involved at the ground level on initiative team, and we'll probably have regular updates for this in all hands. And so when it comes to, yes, I'll talk about that a little bit more, Matt. Let's go ahead and stop again. We can do a little Q&A here, and let me just be mindful of time. 7:36, we're doing okay. So Matt is asking, what will be the decision-making process around the initiative campaign? And there's a few things, right? So one thing is there's two types of initiative campaigns. One is called Initiative to the People, one is called Initiative to the Legislature. And there's a number of differences between them, but the biggest difference is what year we launched the campaign and how long we have to gather signatures. So, initiative to the legislature means that we would have signature gathering in 2027, and then we would make the 2028 ballot. Initiative to the people would actually have us gather signatures starting at the beginning of 2028, and then we would be on the same year's November ballot. So gather signatures top of 2028, and then be on the November 2028 ballot. And it's a big decision. There's major differences between the two. The other difference is that initiative to the legislature, you get about 3 additional months to gather signatures, and you get much better weather. And it's the same number of signatures. Now, all decisions about the initiative, what ballot we're targeting, what kind of initiative campaign we're doing, ultimately, like all things at Whole Washington, that is a decision that needs to be made by the board of directors. As the executive director, my job is to advise on that. And then on whatever decision the board of directors makes, my job is to execute it to the best of my abilities and as successfully as possible. Obviously, I have a lot of influence on this because I ran the last initiative campaign and I've built a very close relationship with the board of directors. And so this is a decision that, to a large extent needs to be made by Whole Washington leadership, but it also needs to be made under the understanding that it's going to be Whole Washington volunteers and our county level teams, and our community coordinators who are going to do a lot of the work, as well as our coalition partners. So the other thing about this is it's not really a Whole Washington alone decision. This is a decision that needs to be made with our coalition partners. And that's the Healthcare is a Human Right Coalition, but almost more importantly than the Healthcare is a Human Right Coalition, the organizations that are committed to gathering signatures with us. And there are a number of organizations right now that would be included in that. I would say that it basically comes down to Progressive Victory. It's the biggest organization that is most strongly committed. The DSA network, which there are a couple of locals that are more committed than others. So there are DSA chapters, across the state, but there are at least a couple of chapters that have endorsed Whole Washington and are most interested in the initiative campaign. So that'd be DSA Tacoma, DSA Spokane, and DSA Vancouver. To a lesser extent, DSA Seattle. Other than that, I would say Indivisible is a big signature gatherer for us, has a lot of infrastructure for us to work with. But there's other organizations as well, and others that we hope to bring in. So the goal is, whether it's in this meeting, and we may just do it in one meeting, or we may schedule a separate meeting to talk with our coalition partners in a more coalition-based conversation. But we really need to be having these conversations with the people and the organizations that are going to bottom line the signatures. And I think that when that group of people feels confident about a plan for success, that will be the decision. Do we have other questions about the initiative team, the initiative planning process, the initiative decision-making process? There's a lot here to learn, and that's part of why we're setting up a team and regular meetings to talk about it. but since we're introducing it tonight, it's an appropriate opportunity to ask questions. I can talk a little bit more about the differences between the two types of initiative campaigns. They're being discussed in the um, chat a little bit, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually share a page of the website. And I hope that this page will actually be updated relatively soon, because I think it needs to become more action oriented, including the team meetings and stuff like that. But for now, if you go to wholewashington.org/initiative, and you'll see that it's under the campaigns section of the header, so ballot initiative. You'll get a breakdown of the two different types of initiatives. So, like I said, initiative to the legislature basically means we would gather signatures between March and December, which is about 9 months, and then we would go on the November ballot the next year. Now, if we gather enough signatures, there's a few opportunities for the legislature to be involved, and some of them may be good and some of them may be bad. The first is that the legislature can actually just choose to pass it exactly as written. So instead of having it go to the ballot, they simply pass it as law. It's actually not crazy. Some of the more recent initiatives that gathered enough signatures, the legislature actually chose to just pass rather than have it go to ballot, and we could be one of those initiatives. The next opportunity is they can decide instead to send it to the ballot uncontested. So they decide they don't want to pass it, therefore it will go on to the next ballot exactly as written. The third option is that they can allow it to go to ballot, and there will be one version that's exactly as the way we wrote it, but they can also introduce their own version. So the legislature basically tries to write their own version of the same general idea, and we don't know exactly how that's defined and exactly how much leeway that gives them to be different than what we propose. But if they do that, the voters of Washington will be given a slightly more complicated ballot that basically says, I want either of these, I want neither of these, or I want this one, or I want that one. So basically, they'll be able to decide first whether or not they want universal health care at all. And then if they want universal health care, they'll be able to specify if they have a preference between the two. It's a little bit more complicated. It usually doesn't happen. In fact, I can say that as somebody who's lived in Washington my entire life, I have never seen this done on a statewide ballot. I've seen it done at the municipal level. The initiative to the people is in some ways more challenging because we would have to file in January and we would have to turn the signatures in by July, meaning that we have to gather out in the least favorable weather in Washington state. Our first initiative campaign, I-1600 in 2019, was an initiative to the people. It's about a 6-month window to gather the same number of signatures. But then it goes on the ballot the same year. So it turns a 2-year campaign into a 1-year campaign. One advantage of this is it's theoretically cheaper. By cutting a year out of that campaign, we may not have to raise quite as much money to accomplish the same thing. It also means that industry has less opportunity to create a fear campaign, and it means that the legislature is not involved. There's no legislative input on this version. If we gather the signatures, it goes on the ballot. If it gets enough votes, it becomes law exactly as written. No legislative input on this track at all. So advantages and disadvantages to both. And we haven't fully decided which one we're doing. But the decision will be based on success. Whichever option we feel gives us the greatest chance of success. If you're wondering about the number of signatures, it's based on 8% of the votes in the last gubernatorial election. This is how we calculate a goal of 386,000. Technically, we only need 308,000, or 309,000 more like, but you have to account for some of those signatures not being valid, so you add a little bit of padding to that number. Right now, we think 386,000 is a good goal for us to aspire towards. Go ahead, Rhonda. Question.
Yeah, I actually feel bad asking this question because it's about what happens if we start a campaign and we don't succeed, or if we did a legislative campaign and it didn't pass. Can we start over? Is there a what happens?
We can always start over. I mean, the unfortunate thing is that nothing happens, right? Basically, the signatures, they get thrown away. That's why actually a huge part of the infrastructure that we develop for the initiative campaign is a data entry system where we take the information that people give to us on their signature sheets, enter it into our action network so we can stay in touch with them. If we don't do that, then those signatures are just gone. Um, so we try to enter every signature that we get into our database so that if we don't succeed, we at least have that person in our database for the future because we still want universal health care. Um, the next thing that I'll say is that um, if we don't make the ballot, the truth is that not making the ballot is not as huge a setback as making the ballot and losing the vote. Not making the ballot in the past has set back our work quite a bit in the sense that we experience all of this growth and tons of people hear about us and tons of people get involved and we collect donations and they gather signatures. And then after the disappointment of not making the ballot, people go their separate ways and they take a break, they start working on other stuff, they move on from whole Washington. A lot of the people who have carried the organization, what has distinguished them above anybody else, right, is that many people have come and gone over the years for a campaign in a year, but it's been the long haulers who stick with the organization through the defeats that kind of have turned into the core team that have brought us here. Um, but I think every one of us who have been here across those cycles knows that immediately after an initiative campaign, the organization gets stripped back to basically its core volunteers and usually doesn't have that much money in the bank. Now, it could be different this year because we are trying to run a much better resourced campaign and we're trying to be more intentional and cost effective with how we spend our money. Um, our other campaigns were run on tiny budgets. I'm talking $20,000. It's tiny. So sure, we didn't have much money left, but we didn't have that much to begin with. Um, but but if we don't make the ballot, I think we figure out what we're doing next. We can decide what our next ballot that we're targeting is. We can decide to focus on the legislature. Um, Now, if we make the ballot and then we don't pass it, and no pressure on anyone here, that is about the worst case scenario. Now, I don't mean this to say that we should be so scared of this that we don't try, because I think that many, many movements and many, many great political successes are built on the failures of the past. And as somebody who, in many universal healthcare circles, is still considered a young organizer, I just turned 35 this year. But I know people who have been in this fight for decades, literal decades. And the reality is, whole Washington did not fundamentally develop the policy. All of this stuff has happened before. Many, many of our partners have been in this longer than us. So, in the grand scheme of things, I think that an initiative campaign that makes the ballot and gets in front of every Washington voter and everybody thinks about it, and there's articles in the Seattle Times and there's fear campaigns, I actually do think it moves us forward. But the reality is, in the immediate future, let's say the next 4 years, um, the appetite for another initiative campaign is going to be very low. Um, and we've seen that in other states that have made the ballot and then not made it all the way. The most recent example being Colorado in 2016, 10 years later, has not run another initiative campaign. I don't mean to say that they couldn't. I don't mean to say that if I was in Colorado, I would agree with every decision there. I don't know the situation intimately. Um, but it's very difficult to rebuild that coalition and get everybody out to do another initiative in 2 years or 4 years. You really have to um, rebuild your empire and then show that something is going to be different on your next try. And that's why a lot of the times after an unsuccessful campaign, the attention shifts back to the legislature because it's cheaper, it's less labor intensive, gives people something to do while that rebuilding is happening. Um, New York does keep trying, Pam saying in the chat. One thing about New York that's different than us is they do not have an initiative pathway. And so their only pathway really is to keep pushing the legislature. We're lucky to have another option. But if we get this on the ballot and we don't get the votes, there'll be setbacks in the legislature as well. Many legislators will look at that unsuccessful vote and say, this is a message from the people of Washington that they don't want this. And that will not necessarily be true because the people of Washington can be fickle and influenced by fear campaigns and political spending, just like anything else. So while it won't be true to us, it will become something that we have to overcome in the minds of the legislature and the people of Washington. Um, I hope this isn't too much. I hope this is at least as inspirational and informative as it is. I don't want it to be discouraging, but I also want to set realistic expectations, and I want everybody working off of realistic information. Do we have more questions here? More discussion? Seeing some good stuff in the chat, but I think we're probably about ready to move on. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to get back to the slides, and then I am going to resume. We are coming up on time. We'll go till 8:15, but I want to get through the rest of this. Okay, so jumping back in, as I was talking about, how do we get involved with the initiative campaign when we're not currently running an initiative campaign? One answer to that, and I think actually the most important answer to that, and we've said this for a few months now, you really have to help us build strong teams in every county. If you're one of our volunteers who's been involved, but mostly involved on Zoom, mostly involved on Slack, what we would ask you to do next is try to meet up with whole Washington people, meet up with people in your county in person. So every county is in a different place, right? So the first question is your county already active? And we have a regional directory as well as pages for the counties that are active. And I'll show that in a second, but basically every county is in a different place. So the first is there a county team at all? Is this county considered active or is it one that we'll have to activate? The second is, do they have a county coordinator? Some counties become active without a county coordinator. And so the sort of next thing that they need is to get a county coordinator because it just goes a really long way to have one person who's focused on keeping that group productive and organized. Other counties, they start because somebody says, I want to be the coordinator, and they're the ones who activates it. But you don't have to take on all that pressure. We can activate a county without somebody designated into that role. Every county does have a Slack channel. So if you're not in your county Slack channel, please join it. You can introduce yourself there, see whose message is back, and you're already making local connections. That's what it's going to be built on. Next, check the events calendar for an upcoming in-person event. We try to have every active county do a monthly meetup, but there's also one-offs, a tabling event, a town hall. So see what's available. If you want to start a new county team, that may be necessary. Again, join the Slack channel, ask around, say, is this county active? Is there a coordinator? And if the answer is no, then what we can do is you can work with Jen, our volunteer coordinator. And what we usually start with is a virtual meetup. So we find who is available, we pick a day, we just start with a meetup over Zoom. And we keep it on Zoom until we feel that we're ready to move to that in-person component. But usually it only takes one Zoom meeting. We just say, okay, whoever shows up, the 3 people, the 6 people, the 10 people, they pick a day that works well for that group. They pick a location that works well for that group, and they schedule an in-person meetup. And that becomes your team's in-person meetup, we can help you promote that. We can get an email out to people in that county. And so that gives people a thing to show up to just to start meeting people and building connections. Don't even worry if you have an agenda. Don't even worry if you have stuff to do. You have to meet your crew first, and the things will come out of that. So get your first meetup scheduled, and it really goes from there. Next is we can get a web page built for your team. So we don't do that until we feel that the team has hit a couple milestones. But if you have if you've had that Zoom meetup, you've got an in-person one scheduled, if you have a coordinator, then you're ready to have a page built, and you can request one on the website channel, or you can just ask around. But once we have that on our radar, we can get a page built pretty quickly. These are the 10 counties that we consider active and that have pages. So if you're in one of these counties and you haven't checked it out yet, Clark, Island, King, Kitsap, Okanagan, Pierce, Snohomish, Spokane, Thurston, Whatcom, all in different states. Some of them still very early, others more developed. The two most developed are, I would say, almost certainly King and Spokane. Great stuff happening in Pierce and Thurston. Whatcom been going for a while. Go ahead, Catherine. What's up?
I just want to say, I think it's Okanagan.
Okanagan.
Yeah, okay.
And then as a reminder, if you're unsure of how things are structured, we do organize all the counties into regions as well. So you can see that we've divided Washington into 7 regions. They're not necessarily perfect, but they just allow us to break the state down into more approachable chunks. And we do have a monthly meeting for the regional and county leads. So the next one is on Wednesday, the 15th at 7 p.m. And what I'll say is that this is where we try to get the regional and county leads together to support them and coordinate them, hear the ideas that are coming. But this meeting is for everyone. So if you're somebody who's just passionate about building your local or regional team, please show up. You don't have to be a lead. And then, yeah, where do I find the regional directory? Where do I find my county pages? They're in the footer. So scroll down to the footer of the website. All of those are clickable, including the text that says regional directory. But you can also click any of those pages. And like I said, we can get a new page built soon if your county is ready for it. A county page, and this is the King County page. But usually, you can find information about your team, like what region it's in, who's the coordinator, how to find the Slack channel. Some of them have Facebook groups, but also they usually have their own event calendar that's just events in that county. So if you don't want to comb through everything on the all events calendar, then you can look on the county page. And all of these pages are something that the local team should feel empowered to make their own. So work with the website team. If you have something that you want on there that's not on there, we can probably add it on there. For instance, some of these pages have the endorsements that come from that county, the local endorsements. So maybe you don't have any now, but then you get an endorsement, you want it featured on your county's page. We can totally do that. And then some legislative updates. I'm going to not pause just in the interest of time, but we'll circle back if there's more discussion. Just some legislative updates for you all. So the first thing that I want folks to think about, even though legislative session is over, that doesn't mean that the legislature stops. So most legislators, they work even during the interim. They're available to take meetings with their constituents. So you should pursue a meeting with your legislator or any other legislator that you want to meet with. You can talk to them about universal health care, Whole Washington, the Washington Health Trust. And right now, we're not just out of session, but we're completely out of biennium, which means that technically speaking, there are no bills that are live, there are no bills that are active, and none are going to be introduced for a while. But that just means that there's more time. It means we're more ahead of things. So you can just say, hey, we want to talk before the session starts. We want to talk so that we can get things introduced right at the beginning of the new biennium. So the dates that I want you all to just be aware of. First of all, Election Day on November 3rd. And we're talking about it in the context of local elections. So all members of the state house are up for election and about half of the Senate, which means that statewide, no matter who you are or where you are in the state, there are elections happening, and elections are an opportunity to make universal health care an electoral issue. So there are ways to make sure that this issue is included in that candidate's election, making sure that they get asked, seeing if it's on their website. There are ways in which we can be involved in elections. One thing to know is that we traditionally do not endorse candidates, and we're not really looking to change that at the moment. So many candidates may ask you about getting an endorsement from Whole Washington. Instead, what we usually do is we push them to endorse us and say, we can let our members know who has taken the very important and critical step of endorsing Whole Washington. And that's something that they can take into account when they fill out their ballot. So we tend to we're the ones who make the asks of the candidates and the legislators, and then we're the ones who thank them and provide information to voters about how everyone is doing. But we don't tend to directly support campaigns, and we don't pick winners and losers. We just say, out of all the candidates in this race, here are their records on healthcare. We've also done candidate forums in the past, right? So we can invite all of the candidates in a race to join us for a forum, take questions about healthcare, give the public the opportunity to meet them. So that's another way we can be involved with candidates and elections. So there's a number of races that may be more relevant to this or not. Many may be safe seats, non-competitive races, but competitive races especially, or races against an incumbent who's not supportive of universal health care, those are the ones we really want to think about. Starting on the 1st of December, that is when we'll be able to pre-file new bills for the 2027-2028 session. So really, ideally, we would have them filed on the 1st. That gives them the best chance of getting a hearing and the most time to gather co-sponsors and build a successful legislative campaign. So even though you can pre-file right up to the first day of session, which is January 11th, we're really hoping to have our bills pre-filed by the 1st, so that on the 11th, we can really be focused on gathering co-sponsors. So session begins on the 11th. That's the first day of the 2-year biennium, 27-28, but it's also the first day of the 2027 session. 2027 session ends on April 26th because it's the long session, 105-day session. And then the next year, we'll finish out the biennium starting on January 10th. The 2028 session begins, and then all bills have to pass by March 9th, 2028 to make it in the 2027-2028 biennium. So really what that means is the legislature works on a 2-year cycle. It begins in January. It's going to end in March of 2028. And those are the 2 years that we have to move a new suite of bills. We want to introduce them as early as possible, and then we have the full 2 years to pass them. But that's how the legislature works, and that's what the next 2-year cycle is going to look like for us in broad strokes. Here are a few races to watch. I'm sorry I didn't have time to jot down the candidates, but these are races that we know are going to have some interesting universal healthcare activity in them. So LD 26, that's a Republican district, but you know, the incumbent is stepping down, and there was some interesting healthcare legislation that came from that seat. LD 49, that's Senator Cleveland's district, but it's actually a health trust sponsor that's retiring, Sharon Wiley. We've talked to at least, actually, our understanding is that both candidates that we're aware of in that race are Whole Washington endorsers and are likely to co-sponsor the legislation. I don't need to read all of these out, but you can see a number of these, you know, are actually incumbents who are Washington Health Trust sponsors, which means that, you know, hopefully their challengers, you know, will also be Whole Washington supporters and in a position to push them to go beyond sponsorship, right? It's great that you're a sponsor, but can you do more? And a few other of these, may be able to push somebody who is not as friendly. In particular, LD43, Jamie Peterson is Senate leadership and is not particularly enthusiastic about universal healthcare as far as we can tell. So if we work with his challenger, we may be able to push him to be more committed on universal healthcare. Or who knows, maybe a more universal healthcare friendly candidate will actually unseat leadership, which will provide a very, very powerful message to the rest of the legislature that they really got to get on board with this stuff. So there's a lot of opportunities here. We should be mindful of what is happening and how we can have an impact that moves universal healthcare forward. Also, just shouting out Congress as well. We haven't looked at as many of these races, but Michael Baumgartner, CD5, he is basically about as far from a universal healthcare supporter as you can get. There is an independent running in that race who is supportive of our work. So even at the national level, there are opportunities for us to centralize universal healthcare as an issue. That does bring me to the end of the material. So I'm going to stop the recording now and stop the screen share. And with whatever time we have left, we can, answer questions, a little bit of good of the order,